This is Steve Robbins. Welcome to the Get It Done Guys quick and dirty tips to work less and do more. Writing. I just love writing. And to produce the best writing, you need editing. Editing? I just love... No, I don't. I hate editing. Writing takes a lot of time in the first place, and when you add editing on top of it, it takes even longer. But there's a better way. Think about newspapers. Newspapers create hundreds of pages of high-quality writing every single day, and all of it goes through a writer and an editor. They must have secret superpowers, or they've found a magical way to speed up the process. Bernice was working on a first article for her Green Growing Things blog. She really wanted Melvin to review the articles. He was busy with IT problems with the computers that are controlling the annual Green Growing Things Greenhouse Pink Floyd Laser Light Show Sleepover Pillow Fight Extravaganza Fest 2016, so he couldn't spend too much time on her writing. But editing writing takes time no matter what, and Bernice did need the articles looked at quickly. After all, the Extravaganza Fest was coming. When there's little time, but time is of the essence, we need a way to edit fast. So use the 80-20 principle to do that. The 80-20 principle says that only about 20% of your work leads to 80% of the result. Here's an example. Let's say that you're starting a freelancing career. Your to-do list contains a gazillion items. Get logo designed. Find website provider. Create website wireframes. Return phone call to prospective client. Print business cards. Send bank statements to bookkeeper. That's a lot to do, right? Wrong. If the goal is to have a thriving business, the to-do item, return phone call to prospective client, is the 20% of the task list that gets you 80% of the way to the result, a successful business. The 80-20 rule also applies to writing. Only in writing, you get 80% of the way there in 20% of the time. And then you spend the last 80% of your time getting the last 20% of the polished draft. The key to great, fast writing is to cut out that last 80% of the time for 20% of the quality step. And instead, you replace that by another 20% of the time gets 80% of the quality editing pass to get it closer and closer to perfection. Here's how it works. Start writing until you get a draft that's about 80% done. The language may be a bit rough, the logic might not be perfect yet, but don't get stuck on that. Instead, hand it off to your editor. Then they do a 20% editing pass. They make high-level comments, and they resist the urge to nitpick spelling and grammar. They just hand their conceptual edits back to you. These become fuel for another 80% draft, which prompts another 20% edit, and so on. You continue until you run out of time or until you're happy with your product, which might be a lot sooner than you think. The total time that it takes for multiple 80-20 editing passes is less than it would take to stick with the article and nitpick it all the way up to 100%. Bernice sent her blog article, entitled Inviting Audrey, 6 Safety Tips for Carnivorous Plants at Sleepovers, to Melvin. Now, putting aside his laser show programming work, he scanned the article. His comments were to reorder the flow of her paragraphs and to fix a couple of places where the language was too wordy. Notice that he didn't comment on how to do it, and he didn't rewrite it himself. He just commented that it needed to be done. After 10 minutes, it was back to Bernice for another hour or so of careful rewording. Use 80-20 editing with your boss. Doing editing passes of equal lengths between two people makes sense when they both have time. But when one person is in a position of power, like your boss, or has more important responsibilities than filling their day with editing your work ad nauseum, of course your work would never be ad nauseum. You and I know that, but your boss might think otherwise. Well, in that case, you have to unbalance the work to make your end where all the heavy lifting gets done. And that's where the 80-20 principle really shines. Melvin also needed help reviewing his work on the laser show. However, Bernice was not only busy with her blog post, but also with managing the preparations for the sleepover, and of course, running the Green Growing Things store. She had no time to do substantive edits on his laser show, so instead of making really specific color suggestions or movement changes, for her first passes, she made broad suggestions. Make the swooshy bit more swooshy. 80-20 editing saves both you and your editor time without sacrificing quality. Making a 100% picture-perfect draft the first time may sound like a service to your team, but that would only be true if you could actually do it, and you can't. So save yourself the time of nitpicking right away and save copy edits for a very final pass. As higher-level things change in the article during early passes, more typos might show up or get moved around, so you can fix all of the small errors in one fell swoop at the end. That way you don't have to bother your boss with small stuff, just the concepts they really care about making it into your writing or your work. But you don't have to just do it between boss and employee. You can do the 80-20 editing method at the same time between two people. You can use the 80-20 editing method with one piece of work, or you can do two pieces of work at the same time. While one person on your team is doing the 20% editing pass, you can do theirs. Then you swap. You work on the 80% changes that you need to make based on their suggestions, and they work on the 80% changes they need to make based on your suggestions, and then you swap again. In fact, the careful listener will notice that's what Bernice and Melvin were doing inadvertently. Melvin was finished working on his next 20% edit of Bernice's blog article, while Bernice was finishing working on her 20% pass on Melvin's laser show. They rushed towards each other's office to return the document, bumped into each other in the hall, and swapped a quick kiss. This is the romantic part of the show. This is the only personal productivity podcast available anywhere that has both romance and carnivorous plants, so tell all of your friends to subscribe today. Bernice and Melvin also swapped drafts and moved on to the next stage of editing. With a couple of 80-20 passes, they got their writing done. It's high quality, and they have time left over to clean out the supply closet together, with the door closed, for no particular reason. It's so much fun working with your schmoopy. By using the 80-20 editing method, you too can streamline your editing process by easing the load on overworked members of your team. You can keep busy work off your boss's desk and improve the handoff between your teammates. On each pass, get 80% of the way towards the remaining quality level and give 20% of the editing feedback that will help your counterparty get 80% of their way on the next pass. The Green Growing Things Greenhouse Pink Floyd Laser Light Show Sleepover Pillow Fight Extravaganza Fest 2016 went off without a hitch. Feathers, yes. Hitch, no. They brought along an Audrey too. They took appropriate precautions, as per Bernice's blog post, and a good time was had by all. The Audrey 2 struck up an unlikely friendship with Bernice's cat, and now they go everywhere together. It's absolutely adorable, and the neighborhood has been strangely free of rats, cockroaches, and politicians. This is Steve Robbins. Follow Get It Done Guy on Twitter and Facebook. I run webinars and programs to help people build extraordinary careers and become extraordinarily productive. If you want to know more, visit steverobbins.com. That's SteverRobbins.com. Work less, do more, and have a great life.